All right, hey, and welcome back. So now we're going to talk about hexes. We've gone through the reputation and the policy points, and the setting up the ether, giving yourself money and stuff, like basically putting things into your active area of your start map. I've just reset the board because I wanted to just kind of like go through the facilities and the zones and give you guys a bit more of an in-depth sort of thing of surrounding hexes. So talking about when we draft hexes at the beginning or draw hexes at the beginning, and then talking about what makes a hex what it is, the different types of hexes that we have in this game, the different types of hex tiles that we have, and just to kind of give you an indication as to what to look out for, the symbols on the hexes, what they all mean, etc, etc, etc. So then when it gets to the actual stage when you're drawing hexes on your very first game, you're not in the dark too much. You don't know, you don't know anything. We don't want that to happen. So yeah, so this video is just going to go deep into hexes, and yeah, let's go for it. So every president mat under the start section will have a number that says how many facilities they start with, followed by how many zones they get. Civitas Nihilium has 6 facilities to start with. This particular president has 6 facilities to start with, 2 zones plus 1 IZ, which is an industrial zone. Whenever you see F or Z in an acronym, it's always either going to be a zone or a facility. So in this case, an IZ or an IZ is an industrial zone, a CZ is a CZ is a commercial zone, and an RZ or an RZ is a residential zone. So we say Z in the UK, and I know it's American English, it's Z, but yeah, so it's IZ, CZ, or IZ, CZ, or RZ. Z. And then facilities, there's lots of different facilities, but they, like MF for example, would be military facility, MEF would be media facility. Facilities and zones at the beginning of the game, they're in separate piles over here by the scoreboard. You have here on the left hand side, you've got inactive zone pile, and then over here on the right hand side you've got the facilities, inactive facilities. If you flip them, that's their active side. So the hexes come in inactive, and then when you bring them into play at the beginning of your turn, the zones are active. But at this stage, when we're just looking at them, we just see that they actually come in as inactive like this. So let's talk about the zones. So we've got the zone facilities. We have commercial zones, industrial zones, and residential zones like this. These are their inactive sides. At the beginning of the game, when you're laying down your starting zones, they come in active, but then later when you lay them later on in subsequent turns after your first go, they'll come in inactive and you'll have to activate them. When they're laid inactive, you see these numbers on the back. That's the cost in ion you need to place onto the hex prior to builds completing, which would then flip the hex. But, very important point, these hexes, the zone hexes that you take at the beginning of the game, come in active. You have an active Civitas prior to coming in. You don't just have your player mat when you first start the game. You have your zones placed. So if you think about it, it's like a city already existing before you take power as the president. It already did exist thematically, and you've taken the reins of the presidency with these zones in place. And then you start to kind of shape and build the city however you please, the city state however you please. So industrial zones, just kind of to talk about what an industrial zone is. So an industrial zone is a hex with the yellow lines going across it. That shows industrial section. And then we have the blue hex, which is commercial. So blue is commercial, and then green is residential. If anyone's played SimCity 2000 before, you'll see where the inspirations come from for those colors. And then if you look on the top of every zone is the bonus. So what you get in bonuses when you have these zones active. So for every 3 grey transparent SP meeples, if you remember what those are these guys down here, the general, the standard patriots, the standard population in your Civitas. So every 3 of those workers placed there, they produce 1 material cube, up to a maximum of 12 to be placed. Over here on the commercial zone, you place 2 and you place 4. So these are allocations. So if you were to have, say, 6 on here, you could produce 3 ether, or you could produce 1 ether and 1 material cube. So it's kind of allocation. So you allocate meeples to the particular jobs, and of course this again 12 max. Over here are the policy points. Now, the policy points are what you use predominantly to enact policies. That's this board here. You gain policy points, and you would basically put your cube on. If you had this active with four transparent meeples on it, when it was the turn to receive hex bonuses, you would basically get 1 policy point for every 4 transparent meeples that were placed, SPs that were placed on this residential zone. So you would go over here and you would just basically move up the policy tracker to 2. Then if you wanted to spend policy points to enact a policy on a policy card and it cost 2 policy points, you would spend the 2 and go back there again. So policy points are not qualifiers, they're actual units that you need to spend in order to enact policies, and they're created predominantly on residential zones. There are some facilities that produce policy points, but the majority of the policy points will be coming from your active residential zones where you place 4 SPs on there. So that's the zones. Now, zones are very, very different to facilities in the way that they work. So a zone is the linchpin, is like the central core section of your Civitas. When they are active, they are effectively wild. They can attach to anything. That's totally legal to do that. Zone like that. Facilities have different rules, and we'll get to that in a second. I'll just keep this shape up here just to show you that that's allowed, and then we'll move over to the facilities and we'll have a look at the facilities. So I'm just going to show you the different types of facilities that we actually have. So here's 3 different types of facilities right now. So we've got a entertainment facility, we have a tech facility, and we have a government facility. There they are there. Now these are the same colors as the respective zones with which they can be attached. So the blue entertainment facility, that can be attached to a commercial zone. So if we flip that over, you see here, this can be attached to a commercial zone. So facilities that are blue can be attached to commercial zones. This facility costs X amount to be activated. It can be placed in your Civitas, but it needs to be activated. And the cost for that are 3 ether, 3 material cubes, 3 standard patriots, and 3 ion. Once those units have been all placed there, and you get to your complete build section, the hex will flip. Okay, now as you can see, there's something here called development propaganda. Allocate 3 building slots and gain 1 reputation during hex bonus. If you have 3 of these sections covered or that are allocated. So if we had, for example, 3 ether coins on here, or a 3 ether coin, 3 material cubes on here, and 3 SPs or 3 ion or whatever else. If we just have 1, 2, and 3 of those, when we got to hex bonus stages, you would be getting 1 reputation bonus for that. Because if you think about it, in dystopian societies, in totalitarian societies, if you're building something like a great big hotel, I'm thinking of the one in North Korea, the one in Pyongyang, the Rangyon Hotel, that's like a pyramid hotel, and it's completely empty. It's unfinished, and it's been empty for I think about 10 years. It's a 100-floor hotel, built obviously to sort of show off the majesty of North Korea and how wonderful the dictatorship is, of like developing stuff for the people, all that kind of stuff. This is the same thing. So taking that real life dystopian aspect and putting it into this game as propaganda, because of course in a cyberpunk future, in a cyberpunk alternative future, there is definitely dystopian stuff and propaganda like this. So having it straight off the back with your facilities, I thought would be a really interesting move. Now we move over to the tech facility. It's a similar sort of situation. You've got the development propaganda at the top of there. All facilities have these. And this facility, tech facility, you have 4 ether, 3 material cubes, 3 standard patriots, and 2 ion. Flip it over, the 3 standard patriots have to stay there. This can only be connected to an IZ, so it can only be connected to an active industrial zone. And this one during hex bonuses produces policy points. So 3 policy points without being upgraded. If you add a CN expat, it's an extra policy point. 1 more material cube is an extra policy point, another policy point, and another policy point. So at its maximum capacity for upgrading, although the CN expats are unlimited, at its kind of face value, you get with upgrades, you get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 policy points. 8 if you add another CN expat, 9 if you add another CN expat. Also, once this hex becomes active, you may search the bidding deck for the policy card titled Hunter Killer Drones and place it into your hand. So the bidding deck, if you remember from the very beginning, the first video, the bidding deck is this deck here. And this is where the cards come out that we bid on. at one of the phases of the actual game itself. Now that is, I don't know why that meeple's ended up there again. That's annoying. So basically, that's what happens with the policy deck that you just saw there. It's a bidding deck in effect. And what this hex enables you to do immediately, as soon as it becomes active, so once the building completes, is you go straight to the bidding deck and you search for the Hunter Killer Drones policy card and you place it in your hand. Now that's a really powerful move to make, because Hunter Killer Drones are incredibly capable. We'll get onto combat in another video, but they're very good for combat, they're very good for defense, and they're excellent. And Curtis Cybernetics is where they developed the Hunter Killer Drone technology. So that's that for that particular hex. Now we move over to the government facility hex. So this is a residential facility. Now there are several different types of facilities that go on different types of hexes. So you have entertainment facilities, media facilities. There's lots of different facilities that you have. So you've got military, look for that. You have a science as well. You have education, military, transport, media, accommodation, tech. There's lots of different types of facilities that you get, sort of subcategory facilities within the overarching residential zone capable to be placed facilities. This one is a government facility. Same thing, development propaganda. This one costs three ether coins, one material cube, three standard patriots, and 1 ion. And everything goes to its respective bank, including the inactive cubes. That goes to the right of your presidential board. And then we flip it over, and this is what happens. So the 3 have to stay there. And this hex kind of similar to this one. In fact, pretty similar, apart from the fact that it does different things in terms of bonuses. But it's an or again. So this is two policy points or 2 ether. And at the beginning of your standard turn, you choose whether this hex generates policy points or ether. Now the standard turn is literally when you begin your turn, when you start playing your game within the game round, your turn within the game round. So here we're seeing we have to place three standard patriots on here to keep it active. But look at this. At the top here, we have something here. So it's for every CNX pack we place there, we get +2 on whatever resource we decide to gain from this, or whatever score we decide to gain from this. In this case, it's, say we went for policy points, we would get 2 policy points without upgrading it. If we had a CNX pack, we'd get 4 because of the +2. And then if we add a material cube, we'd get 5, 6, 7 for adding up to 3 material cubes on that hex right there. So that's how facilities work. And facilities obviously connect to zones. So when looking at your draw pile, when you're drawing hexes, what you're trying to make sure is that you get a good balance between zones and facilities. You don't want to have in your first draw, you don't want to have an industrial zone with no industrial facilities, because that's going to be tricky for you. You want to make sure that you can match up zones to facilities and make sure that it works. So I'm just going to quickly demonstrate a beginning go. So we're gonna pretend that we're Civitas Nihilium, and we're gonna draft or draw our hexes. I say draft because that's Magic the Gathering terminology. So in this it says 6 facilities, 2 zones plus 1 IZ. Now in the game, what will happen is that everybody around the table will draw their facilities first. Now they all have different numbers on here. So Tau has 2 facilities. And Theodore has, I think, 2 as well, I think. But remember, Civitas Nihilium is a much larger city, so they have more facilities at the beginning. So yeah, we go over to here, we double check the start section. It says 6 facilities, and we go around in a clockwise order, taking our 6 facilities, and then we go in the opposite direction and we take our zones. So we'll start first of all with Nihilium. We'll just show you how we would do it. So go over here, always cut. So always cut after a shuffle. So in the physical game, there might be bias. There might be, I mean, it happens. I did it. Everybody does it. Like, it's impossible. When you're playtesting, because you can see the backs of these hexes and you can see the backs of the CNX pack cards, you can basically see that's the back of the CNX pack cards. These are the front. Tells you what they do and stuff, but the back is the image, which is great because obviously you want to see these people queuing up to kind of be to kind of be like people that would come to your Civitas, but at the same time you don't necessarily want to engineer a shuffle that might go in your favor. So shuffle, and then you cut the deck, or somebody cuts the deck for you. We can just do a standard shuffle here, but we would, in reality, in IRL, we would cut the deck. So here we're doing 6 facilities, so we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now look at that. We didn't get a single residential zone in that draw, and we shuffled the deck as well. So we don't have anything that connects to a residential zone, no residential based facilities. So we're already in a bit of a precarious situation here, because we hope when we get to our zone draw that we're going to get predominantly commercial zones and industrial zones. So let's take these over here a second, bring them back so we can actually bring them over to this side of the table. Oh, that wasn't all of them. Let's bring them all over. So we bring them back to that side of the table, and now we imagine that everybody else has had their turn to draw facilities, and then it comes back down to us, and we take our, how many zones were we allowed to take? So we take our 2 zones plus an industrial zone. So Civitas Nihilium always has to have an industrial zone. So we take 2 zones, 1, 2, plus an industrial zone. So there's the industrial zone. We'll draw the commercial zone. Okay, that's worked out great. So we aren't going to take a mulligan. So at this present moment in time, we go back and we look at the situation. We look at where we are with regards to our facilities. Every player does this during this phase of the setup of the game. They look at what they have. Now zones come in for every player as active. So you have to bear that in mind when you're assessing what you've got in your hand. So we're looking here. We've got what we've already discussed. We've got facilities that connect to commercial zones, and we've got facilities that connect to industrial zones. Okay, great. We've got more commercial facilities than we have industrial. So when it comes to us laying out our Civitas from at the beginning, which would be now, it would be that this would be the next step, unless you were taking a mulligan. So we'll quickly talk about the mulligan rule. So if we weren't happy with this, we are happy, but if we weren't happy with this, we would say we're not happy. We would hand back the hexes to the respective decks. We'd shuffle and cut both, and then we would deal ourselves another hand straight away. So facilities followed by zones. Don't have to go around the table when you're doing a mulligan like that. And then you have to accept those cards. So it's a gamble on the second turn, but you do get a chance to hand in your whole deck and get another fresh deck back if you wish. It's highly advised if you don't have any facilities matching any zones, which can happen when you're in the low draw numbers like Tal and Theodore and McMurdo, the other Civitas. 2 facilities and 2 zones, that's considered fairly low. So you would probably need to mulligan at least a few times when you first start playing the game, because that's just the way that it works. And it's absolutely normal to take a mulligan. You just look at it and you go, this isn't going to work for me. I'm going to hand these back in. You might get a worse situation back, but you might get a better one, and that's the kind of gamble that you're taking, right? You're gambling for that. So let's look at what we would do now. So we're now gonna build our Civitas up, right? So at the beginning of the game, at the very beginning, when we're going through the start section, we can place zones. So we're going to place an industrial zone here, and we're going to place a commercial zone there. I'm putting the industrial zone in first because if you see, we only have 2 facilities that can connect to industrial zones. So we put that industrial facility just there, and we put this industrial facility, a tech facility and a military facility there and there. Now these are both inactive. Your facilities come in inactive at the beginning of the game. They have to, because that's the way it works. The zones come in active at the beginning of the game, and then subsequent zones come in inactive. So we'll do another commercial zone here like that. All the zones are active at the beginning of the go for the Civitas Nihilium, and we'll do this along there like that and get in Civitas Tal's way. Right, so this is basically where we're looking. It's a good way of showing us a blueprint of our focus, of where we want to go with regards to how we want to do things. I personally wouldn't set it up quite like this. I would give Tal a bit of space, obviously. I don't want to lose friends, and that would be how it would go like that. Now you cannot. This is a good way of setting it up: zone, 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 and then your facilities like this. But if you're thinking about potentially doing something like this, you can't. You can't even have that. So when they become active, you can't connect facilities to facilities. They don't connect to each other. Facilities must only be connected to their relevant zones, the colors that match their zones. That's the only way that they can connect. Okay, so that's how it goes. That's the rules of the game. That's the rules of hex placement. Okay, so that's it for now. Everybody would basically lay down their zones and lay down their facilities as inactive. You can have these facilities in hand. You can have them in hand and they can be with you over here like this. They can stay in your hand if you like, and you can lay them later on during the next steps that happen in your turn. But for me personally, I like to get all my hexes out. Even though the facilities are inactive, I like to see what I've got, and I like to make a blueprint of where I'm going and sort of draw my focus onto different areas. Some people just like to play the inactive hexes down that they are immediately going to be working on. Others like to do a little bit mix of the two. Some like to not play any facilities down at all. You must place all of your zones down, then they must come in as active, but you cannot. You do not have any particular rule in regards to when you decide to lay down your inactive facilities at the beginning of the game, whether you do or whether you don't, if you get what I'm saying. And now we'll talk about the CRC hex, because this is something that's very important and doesn't actually stick out all that much in people's minds when they're thinking about hexes. The CRC in the middle of your player mat, or your president mat, that is also a hex. It's not a facility that connects to zones or anything like that. It's nothing like that. It's its own wild sort of card. And a zone must connect to the CRC coming out. You must always start your position with the zone coming out of it. But the CRC is kind of like your central hub, your guild hall, your HQ, I guess, your center of parliament, all that sort of stuff. It's where everything happens. It's the administrational arm of your Civitas. Now, what the people that work there are the meeples that you place into it. So during the game, you'll be placing standard patriots into your CRC, and those patriots will be then sent out to work in different places. We'll get to placement of SPs in another video, but basically the ones that you leave here, they can generate for you ether, which is this symbol here, and they generate that during point 3 of the game round. And also the CRC, if upgraded, can give you reputation. There are some other Civitas, not these ones, but oh yes, here we go. Theodore. Here we go. Let's zoom in on Theodore. There are other CRCs that generate people and reputation. Oh, sorry, people or reputation. So what you get here is if you place some material cubes onto this particular CRC hex, that will upgrade it and give you these bonuses where you can choose either reputation or standard patriot. Civitas Theodore is a religious cult, a kind of like a scientific cult, if you can imagine it. Quite crazy, but they believe in existential and transdimensional beings. Quite interesting. Check out the lore. It's intense, but what they can do with their CRC is they can indoctrinate people directly without having to worry about building reputation. So they have that power. The Civitas McMurdo, the synthetics, the ones that are like the robots of the Civitas universe, they can do basically the same thing as well. They can create themselves. They can build their own people. So that's what this is basically it. This is indoctrinating on Civitas Theodore, building synthetics with Civitas McMurdo. Quite fun. And you get to choose which ones you like to do. So based on your situation in the game, you choose what you get with those upgrades. We'll get to upgrading in a second when we go down the game round in another video. But yeah, that's basically it in a nutshell. Those are the hexes. That's their rules for placement. That's their rules for drafting and drawing at the beginning of the game. And yeah, see you in another video. Thank you very much.